Welcome to the Yogi and the Blonde. Welcome to the Yogi and the Blonde. Presenting Nadia, aka the Yogi, and
Michelle, the blonde. I thought you were going to continue with where you were then, so I paused because I thought there was more to come.
I am going to. That's next. Welcome, guys, and welcome for those watching video wise. I am in a caravan. I am off-site from Maria Hot Springs and in about 2 hours south of there, about a half hour north of Christchurch. I'm in Leafield Beach in a campsite hiring out a caravan. And yeah, I'm off site for a few days. So just having a bit of me time and getting all my errands done. So welcome to Caravan Time with Nadia.
That's a good idea for another spin-off.
Yeah, that's so true. Maybe it should be Maria Hut Time with Nadia.
There we go. It doesn't have quite the same ring to it, I think, as caravan.
No,
I love the word caravan. Caravan.
Tiny home living. That's what it should be. Tiny home living with Nadia.
Oh, one of my friends loves tiny homes. She really, really wants a tiny home, but she has a not very tiny dog, so I don't know how that will work for her.
You'd be surprised. There's some pretty cool looking tiny homes that are tiny, but it depends how tiny you want it. Because you can go like really tiny, like caravan tiny, or you can be a little bit more like container. Like there's different sizes of tiny homes. Because I'm doing some research on it.
Oh, really? Exciting.
I've been looking around and just seeing like different layouts and stuff just for my long-term goal. So yeah.
Fun. I stayed in a really cool one in England once. I went on a little girls' weekend.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. You have to be very tidy because everything has its place. And if you don't put things back where they are, then it quickly gets out of control. But it was lovely. And it had an outdoor wood burner, hot tub bath thing. It was very cool.
Yeah. It's certainly a lifestyle, that's for sure. Now, on that note, today's episode is about being the CEO of your life. So Michelle and I made an attempt. We actually did record this at the end of 2023, but with our little wee hiatus, I misplaced the recording. That's when we were using Zoom. So we thought, you know what? This is a really good one, and we wanted to re-record it. So this is what we're doing.
Take two.
Feels it just because it was like, when was it when we started our podcast? Was that like when we started talking was around March? No. March? April? May? No. It was later on. It was June, July. But we're not far from there for 1 year.
Not far from there. But we had to do a few repeats back at the beginning as well, didn't we? So this isn't our first repeat rodeo.
No, but it's always a learning curve. So even today, we're doing like little test runs. Okay, this is our test trial for when Michelle's traveling, I'm traveling, so then we can just keep that consistency. Like we said, we're not doing it weekly. We're going to do it fortnightly and try to, let me rephrase that, not try, but that is our goal. Sometimes life happens and we are just going to be flexible with it. Right, Michelle?
Exactly. Nice rephrase.
Yes. Reframing. That's the way to rewire the brain. Now, taking ownership and being the CEO of your own health, it can also be like the CEO of your own life. It could be the CEO of your career, the CEO of your goals, of your wealth, everything. So when we talk about the CEO of your health, you can actually take this into all parts of your life. Now, 100%. What are your thoughts about that whole thing about the CEO of your health, of your life, Michelle?
Well, look, at the end of the day, to be quite frank and to be a bit harsh, adulting is hard. You know, when we're with kids, you want to grow up and you want to be an adult. And then when you're an adult, you're like, stuff this. This is too hard. But you are the only person that can truly make yourself happy and healthy. And if you don't step up for yourself, then it's just not going to happen for you.
Yeah, you can't.
To be quite frank.
No, but but you're not being frank. It's reality. It's life. It's adulting, right? When we think about that, and it's just about how it is. So my thing is, it's not being frank. You're just being honest and true, and that's that. Now, for me as well, as I find that it's life. I reflect on things that I was told by, you'd have other adults when you're a kid, a teenager, say, enjoy when you're a kid because it's totally different from an adult. And you're at that time, you've got this attitude, this chip on your shoulder, and like, don't tell me what to do. I know better than you, blah, 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 blah. But actually, there is a bloody rhyme and reason behind all that. That makes sense now. And it's like, I wish I would have listened to. So if you know any teenagers, send them this podcast. This might help them realize I'm going to stay and be a teenager, or I'm going to stay and be a kid and not try to grow up so quickly and enjoy these different stages in life, because you learn things at that point in life as well.
Indeed.
Now, with this, Michelle and I have spoken a lot about motivation. People are like, I don't have motivation. But when you think about motivation, you need to create action. That's something we've spoken about lots. Hey, Michelle.
Yeah. Motivation is a thing. People have motivation sometimes, but it's not something that can be relied on. It's not something that is always there, but you can create motivation by just taking action. And a lot of people will say, this is chicken and egg. What comes first? Chicken or the egg? What comes first? Motivation or action? Doesn't matter. As long as you take that action, you will create that motivation. Or if the motivation is what causes you to take the action, doesn't matter. The action is going to keep you motivated as you go.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be big action steps, not huge action steps. Like for example, I'm going to use, I'm going to jump into, so we're going to have 3 things we're going to cover. Well, the first one we're going to cover is get an accountability coach. Now, if any of you guys have listened to like the first original podcast that we recorded, that's how Michelle and I started our podcast, is we were each other's accountability buddies for within our own business, being self-employed and being within the same industry. It just worked, and we just learned and grew off of each other. Now, hiring someone for that, like Michelle or myself or someone else that you might resonate with, it's when for both Michelle and I just don't work with giving you a program and that's it. For example, with one of my clients, we've worked on a few things, and one of them is I work with her online. I've got an app. I have these tasks, and we've had this discussion, and she's asked me, she's like, can you put these tasks down so when I see it, it keeps her accountable? So for example, she wants to try to get to bed earlier. So we've been working on, she's got a reminder every day to be in bed, bedtime is 10:15. She wants to get to work to 9:30, but we're just slowly working in increments. And the thing is, though, when you're wanting to create that motivation, it's taking those small action steps, right? So it's only 15 minutes. And the key behind this is to have that consistency. Consistency is the key, and you'll hear both Michelle and I talk a lot about that. And once she has that consistency for a few weeks, then we'll move it to 10. But even if it takes a month to create that consistency, it doesn't matter, because she's still creating that action steps. Because this is something I'm writing up a post about this, about creating that consistency. And hey, we all have bad weeks, bad months, but it's about sitting with it, not judging, criticizing it, and then just going through some action steps again to get yourself back into it. And so it's just that, and you're just constantly doing it. So for example, when you want to go to the gym, right? And you're trying to get into the gym. You're going to have some weeks where you're smashing it. You're going your 5-6 times, whatever your goal is a week. And then maybe a month later, it's completely dropped and fade away because life happens. Like, right, Michelle? Like, life happens. And that's okay. It's okay. Sit with it. Notice it. Don't judge it. Don't criticize it. But then just keep going with it. Now, your thoughts on that action step?
Yeah, I think where a lot of people go wrong is sometimes their goal can seem so far away and it can almost be quite overwhelming. So, in order to get started on a journey that it feels like the goal is so far away, it can feel demotivating. It's like, oh God, like it's going to be so hard. So, that can make it harder to start in the first place. So, I think actually that's a really nice point about breaking things down into more actionable steps rather than looking so far ahead. This is my long-term goal, but what do I need to do right now just to take that first step? Yeah. So for somebody that, totally wants to change their lifestyle, if they find that they're in a rut and they're feeling lethargic, low, lacking in energy, lacking in motivation, it could be that they have a lot of changes that they need to make to their lifestyle. And I think often people will look at all of the things they need to do and become so overwhelmed they don't do anything. Whereas if they just focused on one thing, and it could be something like, I'm going to make sure that I go to bed at the same time every night and wake up at the same time. Or it could be, I'm going to tidy up my nutrition. But just breaking it down into those more actionable steps gets you going. And then once you've nailed something, that's when you can start to bring in some of the other steps. And that's when the motivation starts to build and increase. And next thing you know, you started off kind of taking little mini steps, and next thing you know, you're running. So it's
which is the next step. Why don't you talk about it? Because you're in a good flow here. What is our second step? Do you remember the second step, or do you want me to recite it?
No. So writing down your habits. And I guess, like I just said, have a long-term goal. I'm not saying don't have a long-term goal. Have something that you are working towards, but take a step back from that as well. Like take some steps back, say, what needs to happen between where I'm at now and where I want to be? What needs to change? And work back. What things need to change? Let's write these down. So I want to improve my nutrition, write it down. I want to make sure I'm moving more. Great, write that down. I want to lose 5 kilos. Great, write that down. I want to become more flexible. Great, write that down. And you start to formulate a plan. And with each of these little paths, you can break that down even further. And eventually you can get to a point where you have almost a daily list that you can just put away. I call them process goals. I've heard them called non-negotiables, but just things that you have every day that you're like, right, every day I'm going to make sure I drink X amount of water. Every day I'm going to make sure I get 10,000 steps. And you just tick away at these little things, bing, bing, bing. And next thing you know, you're on your way.
At the same time, though, with those, sometimes I find some people find it overwhelming when life happens.
Yeah.
It hits the fan kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I think
but the thing is, though,
that's where being realistic comes in, isn't it? And it depends what's happened.
No, I'm going to say no. It doesn't have to be with realistic. It's actually because of life. Because something happens out of your control, which then does a ripple effect and pushes you back. So what I find is when people think, oh my God, I'm not getting my list done, or I'm not getting everything that I've written down that are my non-negotiables, then they start beating up on themselves on it. What I'm trying to say is acknowledge them, sit with it, don't judge. The next day is a new day. Because I find even if you, let's say you can't tackle all of them, because sometimes it comes to unforeseen things, financial things, work commitments, children getting sick, you know, you don't have time. You're busy taking care of your kids, and that's your priority at that moment. Or a sick parent, or a sick partner, or something like that, or a death in the family, or just something that's out of your control that consumes a lot of your time or majority of your time. So it's also being kind to yourself, acknowledging that, write the habits down that you want into play, but don't beat yourself up about it if something out of your control comes into play. You know, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and then they lose that being the CEO of their life, their goals, their health, all of that. So, and then that's where it comes down to that timeline. So again, jumping back to using my client as the example of her sleep thing is, okay, let's put down for 2 weeks. Let's work on it for 2 weeks for this. If the consistency is challenging and that 2 weeks is not enough time, that's okay. Just push it back a bit. Keep working on that one priority habit, then start adding the other ones. Because I find a lot of people fail when they have 5 things they're trying to get into play and doing everything consistent. Just do one, get good with that, get comfortable with it, love it, and then do the next one. Did you see my thumbs up?
I did just see that. How did that happen?
Because I'm on my iPad. I'm on my iPad. No, because I'm on my iPad. So when I do it, it'll... Yes, because when I communicate with my mom and my sisters and stuff like that, it just
on earth is happening. If anyone is not watching this, there's some crazy stuff happening. I'm not an person. I'm not an Apple product consumer, so this is all brand new to me.
Yeah, and you can even have the camera to follow you. It'll follow you if you've got it set up like that. But we're on the other program, we're on the other app, so it doesn't. But when I'm on like FaceTime and Messenger, the camera will follow me moving around.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Technology blows my mind.
Okay. Back on track.
Sorry.
So like even Michelle was talking about the timeline there, but again I'm going to come from, yes, shit happens, life happens and stuff, but be kind to yourself. This is something I'm really learning more and more and more the past 2-3 years is we are our worst critic. And if life happens, something happens, we freak out and then we stop and we think that we've lost everything. It's just a day. It's just a day. It's just a week.
Can I be devil's advocate? I feel like I'm being bad cop today.
That's okay.
I 100% agree with you. Don't take this as me not agreeing, because I'm a very empathetic coach, and a lot of my one-to-one clients that I'm coaching online, there's stuff going on, and I'm always saying, do you know what? Draw a line under it, move on, we keep moving forward. Don't let it derail you. But I do want to say sometimes I think it's differentiating between shit happens, life happens, and it's out of our control, and also making excuses. I think sometimes people can use situations and make excuses. So knowing the difference, but maybe if I can add a caveat to say, you can't do the thing that you set out to do, but what can I do instead? And sometimes the answer to that is absolutely nothing. I cannot do anything else instead because I'm really sick, because I've broken my leg, because there's been a death in the family. Sometimes the answer is there's nothing else I can do. But sometimes the answer might be, oh, my kids are sick, so I'm at home, I can't go to the gym. They're in bed, maybe I can do a workout from home. Rather than saying, oh, well, I can't do anything.
What my favorite thing is lately is, because for me, a lot of the times it's lack of time, is I've got 2 minutes. I can meditate for 2 minutes. I don't need to have 20 minutes. I don't need to have a half hour. Same thing with a workout. The same thing. If I've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'll do that. Bringing that consistency in. But again, I'm coming from my own, I think my personal experience is I'm not using excuses, but I have in the past really beaten myself up massively for not doing something that is a non-negotiable for me. And this is where it gets us kind of stuck in the loop, and where we get stuck in old patterns and way of thinking. So that's, I guess that's my way of looking at how I'm coming into it in that way as well. So and again, guys, like what Michelle and I are saying, we both have great valid points, and we're not wrong and we're not right. It's just our own point of view on that. And I think this is really important, because everybody's going to have their own view on this. But I think the main thing is, and please correct me if you don't agree with me, Michelle, on this, is consistency is the key. And something is better than nothing. So a little something is better than nothing, and consistency is the key. And don't beat yourself up if you are not saying you're using that as excuses, but being mean to yourself.
Yeah.
That inner mean girl, mean guy kind of thing, rather than, oh, I'm just not in the mood. That's different from like, oh, fuck, I'm not good enough because I didn't do it. And there's a bit of a 100%. Difference on that.
Yeah. And you just touched on something. You didn't say it outright, but I think this is where people have an all or nothing mindset. And it's like, well, if I can't do exactly what I set out to do, then it's all ruined and I can't do anything and I'm terrible. Whereas if you can move away from that all or nothing and say, I can't do my 1 hour workout, but I have got 20 minutes. I'm going to do something quickly here. If you can switch to that, it's not exactly what you had set out to do, but it's something, and it keeps that consistency going. You did something. You did something towards your goals. And the more that happens, the more that adds up. And it's the consistency that will eventually get you there, rather than stopping, throwing the toys out of the pram and going backwards and then having to restart again. So
and that's where we're both coming from as well. It's like, that's exactly what I was saying, but just in a different language.
This is why there are two of us. Because there are lots of different ways to say things, and some people, we always say this as well. Some people will resonate with how I describe things. Some people will resonate with how Nadia describes things. And this is the beauty of us combining together on a podcast, because we are different. We have different approaches to things. We very much believe the same things. We're talking about the same thing here, but we're just approaching it from different ways. And I think that's the value. Two for the price of one.
And the last thing that we had talked about is make a plan. And if you notice, everything that we've talked about is writing it out, planning it. And when it comes to any type of goal, health, anything at all, we just have to plan it. We have to work it through that. So, just plan, write down. And, you know, if you're one of those people that say, oh, I hate writing things down, because that's me, but I still do. Type it out. Type it out if that's the case, you know, or find a pen that you really enjoy writing with, and a really beautiful book. I don't have it with me. Oh, I do. No, I don't. It's somewhere else now. Here it is. So I've got these journals, beautiful journals, like with some beautiful art in it. And I love writing in those. I love writing. And Michelle, I'm not one to write, but I've been writing so much more this year. So that's a big thing. That's a really big thing for me. So, and it's like finding a pen that you like, finding a book that you find is beautiful, that has inspiring quotes and stuff. That could help motivate you. And that's also an action step, because we are made of energy. So if you create movement of some sort, you're going to create energy.
See, it all comes back to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of planning, this is quite practical, but often, and I work with a lot of people, and a lot of the time they'll say, oh, yeah, I'd love to get that third workout in, but I just don't know when. And, oh yeah, I'd love to do that, but I just don't know when. And it's like, well, look, you always manage to make it to your PT sessions with me. So why don't you put it in your diary in the same way that you do for your PT sessions with me, that space to come to the gym or to a class? Or why don't you put something in your calendar to create the time when you're going to sit down and write your meal plan for the week. You know, there's the constant, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. Schedule the time in the same way that you would at work for meetings. You schedule meetings in, you schedule appointments in, schedule time in to do some of these things that you plan to do, because you're way more likely to achieve them if you create the time for them. And if a reminder pops up on your phone and says, oh, in 10 minutes, you're going to sit down and write your meal plan. Great. Awesome. There we go. You've just been told by your phone you need to sit down and write your meal plan. And you're more likely to do it rather than just going, oh, yeah, I think later on this week it would be so good if I could write a meal plan. It will come around to that day and something will happen and it'll be chaos and kids will be running around or the dog needs feeding, I don't know, whatever. And it won't get done. Whereas if you actually make a plan, literally plan it, put it in your calendar, you're way more likely to do it.
So going over it again. So accountability coach. Yeah. Accountability coach or buddy, whatever is going with you. Write your habits down to bring into play what you want. Create a timeline of habits. And then make a plan. And all of those, if you notice, there's a lot of the same thing that kind of go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And it's about planning. It's about creating that action to be successful, to be the CEO of your life, of your health, of your career, of your goals, of your journey, of travel. When you go traveling, more than likely, you probably have some basic plans. Not saying that, and not everybody's like that. Some people just like going, okay, I've got a first few days sorted, the rest I'll just go with the flow. And that's okay too. But that's okay for traveling, that's fine. But when it comes to actually achieving goals and working through that, we want to actually have it noted down and writing it out. And it'll change. And make sure you've got flexibility within that as well, because life happens. And so we just want to have flexibility so it's not rigid. So it's not, I don't have time, I don't have that hour, then I don't do it. Well, actually, yeah, you got 10 minutes. Yeah, you've got 2 minutes. Yeah, you've got something there. You know what I mean? So I think that's it for us, keeping it short and sweet. I feel good with that. How do you feel good? How do you feel, Michelle?
Good. I feel like I've been like tough cop, but that's fine. Because
I don't think you've been tough
no one
cop
else
at all.
no one's gonna do this stuff for you. We can help guide you, but no one's going to do this stuff for you. If you want to live a good, healthy life, you got to do the work.
You got to put the work. And that's
You're
interesting,
the CEO.
That's something that I'm actually thinking about is a program that I'm putting together and working. Is going to take some time, but in getting there. And it's like, if you want that quick fix, don't come and see me, because you've got to put in the work. I've put in the work, and to achieve it, you need to put in the work. So if you don't have the motivation, you know you're not going to do it, then you need to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Dig.
Lovely.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Thank you for joining. Okay, Michelle, let's do it together. 1, 2, 3. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining.
Oh, I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Oh my God.
It's one of those days. It's all good. We're having fun here. We're having fun.
We are. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, guys. Comment, ask us, whatever, and we'll just go. Okay, let's
Bye.
see ya. Bye.